Listen to this scenario and let me know if this sounds familiar. Say you're currently renting an apartment and the rent is taking up pretty much all of your monthly paycheck. You want to think of a way where you can start saving money now and to start building wealth and maybe start making some extra cash, but you really don't know how because all your time is spent at your job and most of your money is being eaten up by this rent, which just goes to your landlord. Or maybe you're living with roommates or with family like I was back in the day, and you're trying to think of a way where you can get out and start living on your own without having to pay all your money to landlords in the form of rent. What exactly do you do? How can you start building wealth now? What if I told you that there's a pretty simple way to not only start building wealth, but to actually be able to live in your own apartment and earn a little extra cash on the side and not pay as much as you would if you would be renting out to a landlord? The answer, like I said before, is real simple, and that's investing in multi-unit properties. Multi-unit properties are great for anyone who wants to get started building wealth and also getting a little passive income on the side through rental income being paid to you instead of you paying the landlord. And also, the other thing about it is anyone can do it. You don't need any experience necessary and there aren't any requirements for it. It's pretty much the same as buying a single family home. For those of you who are thinking this is too easy or too good to be true, let me break down this simple concept of how you can build wealth with multi-unit properties. First, what you do is you get something simple like a 2-unit property and you live in one unit and you rent out the other unit. The rental income that you get from the tenant staying in your building will go towards your mortgage, which means that you don't have to pay nearly as much in the mortgage that you would have to when compared to renting out an apartment and just paying your landlord. Once you have that property settled and ready to go, now all you have to do is simply save up your money again and buy another multi-unit property. And you don't even have to worry about selling the first multi-unit property. Once you move out of your apartment that's in that building, you can just rent that apartment out. Now you can get passive income from that property and use that toward the next property. So now I know some of you are wondering exactly how much money is this going to cost me, or exactly how much money do I need to get started and to buy that first 2-unit building? Well, let's break down some of the numbers for this. For this example, I'm going to use a 2-unit building that costs $275,000. Now, depending on where you buy the 2-unit building, of course, they may be cheaper than that, or they might cost a lot more than that. But for this example, I'm going to stick with $275K. All right, so now we got the mortgage calculator with taxes pulled up. So the home price will make $275,000. And for the down payment, we'll change this to 3.5% because nobody really does a 20% down payment anymore. Most loan programs you can just pay 3.5%. So we're doing a 30-year fixed loan. For the credit score, for those who don't have that perfect credit score, let's just lower this just for this example. Make it 640 to 659. And for the property taxes, also to be safe, let's make this $4,000. And the home insurance, let's bump this up a little bit to $1,200. So we'll see, with those numbers, you'll be paying a monthly mortgage payment of around $2,000 and your down payment will be $9,625,000. So that means you'll need to have $9,625 saved up for a down payment. Now, let's not also forget that you're going to need to have money for closing costs saved up. And the money for closing costs is normally around 3% of the loan or the purchase price. $275,000 multiplied by 0.3% would be $8,250. Now we can add the down payment, which was $9,625, and we can see that we'll need almost $18,000 for the home payment and the closing costs. So total you would need around $18,000 saved up for the down payment as well as the closing costs if you're going to get a 2-unit that costs around $275,000. Now remember, you'll also be paying a monthly mortgage of about $2,000 a month. Now if that number seems high and that number scares you, you have to remember that you're also going to be renting out one of the units. So for example, let's just say you're renting out the unit for $1,200 a month. Now you're not going to be responsible for that entire $2,000 because your tenants are giving you $1,200 a month. So you really only responsible with coming up with $800 a month out of your pocket. Now that's going to be a lot cheaper than when compared to you just renting out an apartment and paying all that money in rent to a landlord. And on top of that, you can start building equity by not only paying off the mortgage, but as over time your property increases in value, that also only adds to your equity. So that's how you start building wealth and saving money at the same time. The first thing you need to look at is exactly how much cash flow you will be making from the building. Now, cash flow, the average cash flow, I should say, will vary from neighborhood to neighborhood, but generally you want to see a positive cash flow with each building. So, for example, let's just say you bought a 2-unit building and you're renting out both the units. You want to be able to make enough money on that rental income to not only be able to pay off the mortgage, but to be able to pay off the repairs and any utilities you're responsible for as well, and also have a little bit of money left over on the side. If a property you're interested in isn't currently rented out, you can easily estimate the rental income by just checking out a website such as Zillow and looking to see what similar apartments are renting out for. The rental demand in the Chicago area is pretty high, so you really shouldn't have any problem being able to rent out the units. So as long as you know the average price of the rental units in the area, you should be good to go. Now that you've estimated the monthly income from the building, now it's time to estimate the monthly expenses for the building. Now your monthly expenses for the building are going to include your monthly mortgage. They're going to include any utilities you're responsible for, such as the electrical in the common areas and the water or /sewer bill, or whatever they call it in your area. Also, it's always good to make sure to set aside some of that monthly income for any repairs that may arise. Now, estimating repairs are tricky, but here's my general rule of thumb. You need to be putting aside at least $100 per unit for any monthly repairs, because you never know when those repairs are going to hit. So for example, you might go a few months without needing any repairs, and then bam, the roof leaks and you need to shell out an extra $500, or a furnace goes out and you need to pay an extra $700 to replace a motor. You never really know when those expenses are going to hit as far as repairs come, so it's always best to set aside a little money each month so you can be prepared for when that happens. Because trust me, if you're a landlord and if you own a building, it's eventually going to happen. Once you've looked at the monthly expenses and the monthly income and you still feel that this is a good property for you, the next thing you need to look at are the tenants. Now, tenants can be the difference between a good cash flow king building and a building that just gets on your nerve and is just a sinkhole when it comes to money. So tenants are very important to look at when it comes to each multi-unit property. If the building already has tenants, the first thing you need to figure out is exactly how much per month is this tenant paying. The reason you need to know that is because a lot of tenants, especially if they've been living there a long time, are paying below market rent. So you might be able to rent that apartment out for, let's say, $1,200 a month, but maybe this tenant has been paying $800 a month for the past 5 or 6 years because the current owner has just never raised the rent on that tenant. The next thing you need to do is to speak with the tenants themselves. The reason you should do this is because of two things. One, you want to see if this tenant is actually happy with the building and where they live, or if they have a lot of complaints, because that can give you some insight into how that building is running. Also, you want to see exactly what condition the tenant is keeping their apartment in. Is the tenant taking care of the apartment, or are they trashing the place and there are a lot of things around there that are broken? The last thing you want is to have a tenant that's constantly breaking things, because it's just going to raise your repair bills up, especially if they aren't paying the full market rent. That means that building is just going to be a waste of money with that tenant in there. So that's why you always need to communicate with the tenant to see basically if they're good tenants for you or not. If the property is vacant or if it doesn't have any tenants, well, you're going to need to find some. Like I said before, in Chicago, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other places, the rental market is pretty hot also, and the demand for rental units is pretty high, so you shouldn't have too much of a problem finding them. What I do myself is I'll post my properties on Zillow.com in the rental section and just post the apartment for rent, and I normally get a lot of people responding to that ad. Now here's a pro tip for you. Make sure that any prospective tenant you're dealing with fills out a background check. What I do is I use a website called smartmove.com. As a landlord, you can make an account for free, and any tenant that's interested in leasing your property, all you have to do is send them to that website. They'll pay the website a fee for the background check, and then the website will give you all the information so you can make a decision whether you want to move forward with this tenant or not. Now, I'm sure you're going to run into plenty of tenants that say, hey, why do I have to pay for this background check? I don't want to put forward any money. What if I just pay you a higher security deposit? Blah, blah, blah. Whatever you do, don't deal with those tenants, because if they're avoiding the background check, it's for a reason. There's probably something on there that they don't want you to see, and that's not a tenant you want. Any tenant that's serious about renting out your property will want to do that background check, or at least they won't put up a fight about it. They'll pay that money no problem, because that's what most people do. So if they're avoiding that background check, that's a red flag. Watch out for them. They could turn out to be a real big headache in the future. Since I've shown you how to find good tenants, it's also important to know how to keep good tenants. Now, there's a few things that I do to make sure that I keep any good tenant that I have. First, you have to make sure to answer any repair requests that they have as soon as possible. Don't delay on them, no matter what the request is. You want to show that tenant that you're going to be on top of it, and that anything that needs to be fixed, you're going to take care of right away. This is important because you need to show the tenant that you care about this building and you'll take care of it. Now, I found that if I take care of the building, the tenant will also see me and respond by taking care of the building better as well. If you have your tenant taking care of the building and they see how important it is to you, that's going to lessen your repair costs in the future. So that's always something to keep in mind. Always make sure to keep your building up to date. The next thing I try to do with each good tenant is always offer an extra amenity that they really won't get anywhere else, and I offer it free of charge. So for instance, I'll offer a washer and dryer, but I won't charge them anything to use it. It won't be the coin operated ones. They can just use it for free. I found that this also helps to attract the best clients, and then once you do get a good client, the client tends to stay there because they know if they go anywhere else, they're going to have to pay for that amenity. So that's another thing that you can do to make sure you not only attract good clients, but you can keep them as well. Alright guys, that was some quick tips to help you build wealth by buying multi-unit properties. Any questions for me, feel free to reach out. Once again, my name is Rob Bailey, Realtor in the Chicagoland area with Arnie Realty Inc. Thanks a lot guys. Have a good day.